Hello everyone, I'm Mr. R, and this is the Rondinelli Project. We are going to continue with session 5, painting your fish replica, so let's get right to it. The first thing you need to do before painting is clean off your fish replica. I take an old toothbrush, some Dawn. The resin's completely waterproof, and what I'm doing here is I'm getting all of the remnants of PVA off, any dirt, any oil from handling it, any of the dust from the fiberglass from grinding down fins. But I'm cleaning the fins particularly to give them that clear look. I don't add any coloration to the fiberglass resin. It gives the fins a real natural look. And I like that. After you're done washing and you're satisfied it's clean enough, get the cast all dried off, get all the fins dry, and now you're actually ready for painting. This is my vise that I use. You can probably pick one of these up at Harbor Freight. They're not super expensive, but they're perfect for this craft or hobby. It's got a good set of jaws. It's got a suction cup base. The next thing you need to do is drill a hole in order to put your cast that you're going to paint on your painting wire, which is held by the vise. You want to be really careful when you're drilling. Don't put a lot of pressure. Let the drill bit feed itself up, but you want to go up in there far enough that it supports the fish on the wire. And that's what I'm doing here. I drilled up through the vent. The first thing I paint before I put it on the vise to support the fish is the belly and underneath the gill openings and the vent itself. I want to cover up that seam and get that all ready so I don't have to worry about it once it's on the vise. So you paint the belly first. Now I'm going to take the vent hole, and that's where I drilled up into the body, and I'm going to place the fish replica on that support wire. Get it all positioned, and now you're ready to paint the fish. This is my compressor. It's an Awada. I'm not saying you have to buy an Awada. I'm not endorsing it. This is just what I use. This is my AIRBRUSH. It's designed for fine detail. You really don't use lots and lots of paint. It's a small amount. So I start with the back of the fish. And this just takes some practice. If you've never run an airbrush before, practice on some paper or some cardboard. If you make a mistake, you can take acetone and completely dip this in acetone and take all the paint off and start all over again if you have to. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting a base coat in. And I'm speeding this up because it would take hours to show this to you in real time. So I want to give you the idea. Then I turn the fish around and I do the opposite side. You want to try to keep your colors uniform. If you do one side, you want to be able to get the other side done so that you have uniformity with color. You always reference your source when you are painting any fish. Every fish, it's like a person. Every fish looks different, believe it or not. Everybody thinks they're the same, but they're really not. The patterns are different on every fish. They're not identical. So what you're trying to do is duplicate the pattern concept, not necessarily everything. Now, the colors I'm using are opaque green, light, and a red. And I use a special burnt umber brown that I mix in to get this, what I kind of call the olive green back. That's how I start all of my crappy reproduction paintings. I'll also add some iridescent turquoise. And it's iridescent, it puts a little sparkle in it. And this is a layering effect. You don't paint everything at once, you build a layer. And that's what I'm doing here. Sometimes the airbrush works the way you want it, and sometimes with humidity or lack of, it doesn't, and you'll get some splatter, and that's not good. That's why you'll see me occasionally use a little paintbrush, or you'll see me use a Q-tip. What I'm doing is I'm removing a little splatter of paint that I don't like, or blending it in. I'm using a transparent yellow here, and I'm going to mist this lightly into the green upper back, right around at the lateral line and below into the midsection, and this gives you the transition of color. Once again, reference your source. Every crappie has a little bit different color pattern, but there is some generality to it. There is some color constants that you want to keep for the species. Airbrushing any fish replica takes some practice, and you'll build the skill. There's not just one color. If fish have so many colors in them, they're actually beautiful. What I'm using here is an overspray of a transparent a scarlet color. That's transparent scarlet is the name of it. And it gives some depth. It gives a little bit of that olivey, brownish tint that fish have when the sun shines on them. So that's what I'm trying to emulate. There's the color. It's iridescent, and it's scarlet. And the iridescence is what happens when the sun plays off of the all of the different color patterns and that we can see that give those beautiful colors. Now I'm adding the pattern, and with a black crappie, they are random patterns. It's not like a white crappie that have vertical bars. This is species specific. I say that 10 times really fast. Species specific. Anyway, use your reference. You don't have to cover every pattern exactly as you see, but you want to emulate the concept, the idea of the patterns. I do the best I can to try to follow the patterns. If you're doing a fish for somebody else, they want it to look like the fish they caught. So your pattern is important and your source photographs are important. But if you're doing it for yourself, as long as you get the species look, don't get hung up on, oh, I didn't get that pattern exactly like the picture. It's okay. No two fish are the same anyway. And I'm actually painting individual scales here to emulate the pattern on the side of the fish. The further down you go, they tend to get a little lighter, a little more gray looking, and that's just the amount of paint that you add, but there's a whole process that I go through here to get the look that I like. And once again, it boils down to practice. The more you practice this and the more you do it, the better you'll get. You just have to get your feet wet and dive in. It takes a little bit to learn how to control the airbrush, and I'm no expert, but I do the best I can, and you'll figure that out too. But I really recommend airbrush. Trying to paint this by hand, you're not going to get the blending. You can, but you're not going to get the blending that you need for fish reproduction art. I want to add a little more green look to the back of this fish. So what I'm doing, I'm misting that center patch, and when you add that yellow to that olive green at the top, it brings out that brighter green, and this gives you an idea. You can see the three colors, the green, the yellow, and the white pearl on the bottom. Now I'm going to detail the tail of the fish. And crappies have a certain pattern in their fins. So the caudal fin, the tail, I'm just emulating that pattern. Once again, looking at the source. Going to do the dorsal fin the same way. I've never seen two crappies with the exact same patterns in any of their fins, so it's like individuality. But you do have to follow the pattern of the species. I can't stress that enough. And now I'm going to switch over to the anal fin. Same concept. Look at your source, follow the pattern, and imitate that. Doesn't have to be spot on, perfect, the exact way the pattern is that you're looking at, but you need to follow the concept of the pattern. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm using acrylic-based paint, water-based, and not enamels. They're safer to use, and you can get the same results and a lot easier cleanup. Just soap and water. I'm adding some more detail here, a little darker places on some of the speckles on the side. And now you turn your vise around. I like it. There's a hub at the bottom and you can rotate that. And I'm doing the same thing on the opposite side. I'm just emulating the pattern, putting in the different colored splotches that make a black crappie look like a black crappie. Add colors that are necessary to get the effect. Now, it's taking me a few years to learn this process, but once you get down the color process, it kind of is like muscle memory. It just kind of comes together. There's a lot of different colors in here. I'm using turquoise now to bring out a different iridescence that the sunlight brings out. The beauty of the fins is they're transparent and you can see the pattern on the other side of the fin, so you just kind of copy that through to the other side. And that's what I'm doing. Adding some more depth of color to bring out more detail, finishing up the dorsal fin, the caudal fin, and the anal fin. I'm working on the mouth here. That has a little bit, the closer you get to the front of the fish, the colors change. Once again, I can't stress enough, source. Emulate your source and you'll have a beautiful fish replica. It takes a little practice, but you can do this. Coming up next, I'm going to attach the pelvic fins and the pectoral fins. This is the source, there's my fish replica, and that's what you're trying to emulate. I hope you found that helpful. In the next video, I'm going to show you how I cast the fins and attach them to the fish. And then after that, I will do a special video on how to paint the eyes. You're going to want to check that out. That's pretty cool too. I paint all my own eyes. I don't use pre-painted blanks. Until next time, I'm Mr. R. This is the Rondinelli Project, and we gone!